we kissed for the first time. And in this kiss, my heart like opens up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm kissing her. This is so incredible. And then when we stopped, I looked at you and you said, I don't know why this isn't fun. And I was like, when you were breaking down and sad, I would join you and break down and sad too. And you were like, stop, I don't need that. Like what I need is like a stable container that can hold me in this. And I think in a lot of ways, like some of the undoing of our relationship also reflects these things of like, just like back to like not losing myself essentially, like being able to hold intensity and like not have that replace who I am.
I feel like I did not treat you any way that you deserved to be treated. I didn't know how to honor you back then. And in sitting with that, this like heartbreak of like, holy shit, like I tried as hard as I could and I still hurt this person so bad. And I still did not treat him the way that he deserved. And I had this like really deep resolve that I would never do that again. All right, let's talk about the end of our relationship.
What I recall was super painful.
Welcome to this Tantric life. I am Layla Martin, and today I will be having a discussion with who I call my first adult boyfriend. So we dated when I was 21 years old until we dated for almost 4 years. And he was one of the greatest gifts of my life because we did sexual healing together. We had so many adventures together, and he loved me with a depth of devotion that moved me to my core. And when I first invited him on, we've stayed friends over the years. We've digested our partnership. And in this specific interview, he was a bit raw and almost tense in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I asked him afterwards what was going on. And he said that the morning of this interview, he'd actually done a really deep trauma healing. And he had worked through some of the somatic imprints that were still in his body from our relationship so long ago. And when I thought about why would I release this podcast, why would I even want to share it with you? My intention is to show, first of all, how messy young love can be, but also to really show that no matter where you start out from, because so many of us made mistakes and hurt people in our early 20s, had, as you'll see in this podcast, some embarrassing choices that we made at the time, or felt really lost in who we were or how we loved, that our capacity to grow is immense. So from where I started from, which I'm personally like a little embarrassed about some of the things in this podcast as we relive them, how far we can all come. And I think that's the big hope, is no matter how you were raised, no matter what love felt like to you when you were young or what happened, you can always choose to do better, to be better, and to create the kind of relationships that you really want to be in. So welcome, Ryan. I call you my first adult boyfriend because you were. We dated when I was 21. We got together until I was 25. And I think I told you this like a few years after we broke up. And I still feel this way, that you were one of the greatest gifts of my life because you loved me so well, like far beyond how I knew to love myself at that time. And I think I only recently caught up to knowing my value as a partner and as a woman. Like I worked on my value in a lot of other ways earlier, but it didn't fully catch up. And you were always this reminder, especially from so young, of what I could be. You loved me so incredibly well. And when we were talking about what we were going to talk about on this podcast, you were like, are you okay if I like really share? And I think what I took from that was like, I was like the definition of a hot mess. I think
Fair.
that time I smashed a plate on the kitchen floor,
Definitely.
And I want to reveal some of that hot messness because that was a really formative part of me finding myself, was giving myself permission to live fully. And I think for all of us who are still maybe in the hot mess phase, like I grew up out of that, and to know that you really can find your way, because I think there was a long period of time where I felt really lost. Like I knew I was supposed to do something big and important and beautiful in the world.
Mm.
And I actually remember like crying on my bed, like at some point we were together being like, I can't even stop myself from eating Haagen-Dazs for breakfast. Like, how am I supposed to do anything magnificent? And so I was really excited for us to just unpack our love story, our experience of sexual healing, our journey into Tantra together. So yeah, do you want to kick off how we met?
Yeah. Thanks for that start. And I would argue that maybe the hot mess was, beautiful in a grandiose way also, like before sort of doing something important. Like a part of me wants to say like that I think the way you were living while eating like Haagen-Dazs ice cream and like sort of a funk was also like filled with life. That was beautiful also. So
see, there's that willingness to love.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful that you're like speaking to wider audiences now. And like, I think the signature of like who you were was present and like palpable back then. And, people are cherishing it now in larger amounts. Yeah. So how we met, I was living at a co-op in Berkeley, California on King Street. Fort Awesome, represent.
It was actually called Fort Awesome.
It was called Fort Awesome. It was right by the Ashby BART station, if you know Berkeley, California. Chicken coop, 18 people, a whole backyard with all of these like small structures, a yurt, like cabana, like all of these small structures in A-frame, which I lived in all of them. And it was like zero privacy, but lots of community. So we met there. You learned of the co-op through a friend at school, at university. I think pretty quickly your tone was just different than most people that I've met. And that remains true. Like some of the salient features were, I think I was looking for, to take myself less seriously, like freedom and play, like big play. And you offered like big, like loose, like free from concern play, along with intelligence at the same time. So that was like, initially just like I was honing in on that. And it was like what I wanted at the very beginning was friendship. At least I like didn't identify like immediate sexual attraction, but I knew I wanted to spend a huge amount of time with you. I still remember like crawling on top of cars and like wearing animal costumes and like, just moving in new ways in the world, like kind of going from smaller and scared to like big and free. So I'd say that was like chapter 1 was just like, this person is incredible. Like the way she sees the world is incredible. I can be bigger around her. And if we want, we can talk about the transition into like love and attraction and like where the mess comes in, where things get difficult.
Well, to take everyone to where I was at that point in my life, I had started Stanford University when I was 17 and then spent 2 years in Asia. I basically bought a one-way ticket and had started studying meditation and Tantra and all kinds of spiritual practices. But even earlier than that in my life, I had this sense that people were like asleep. And I was like, we don't have to live this way. Like, this is all made up. So like, why are we not crawling on cars and wearing animal costumes? Like, what are we doing? And part of that came from growing up with a lot of complex PTSD and like a sense of like people hurting each other and it being so stupid. And also like growing up in suburban America, like I went to the high school next to Columbine and just the level of violence and alienation and loneliness that people were experiencing when I was in high school. And we had a fair amount of privilege and people were literally killing themselves and each other. So for those of you who don't remember, Columbine was the site of the largest school shooting that had happened up until that time. And I was a freshman. And I remember just being like, whatever we're doing, it's not fucking working. Like, and this level of violence and anger and dissociation and trauma, like what the hell? And so I carried that signature with me very powerfully. And I had a kind of revolutionary attitude that at that time was like a real, like, fuck you to what people were doing, because I thought that was the problem. I've grown out of that to a certain degree. the rage and the anger, but I was very much in that to a certain degree. And at that time I was back at university. And I remember I went through I think it was a 2-year period where I refused to buy anything. So I was wearing people's leftover clothing that I found.
You collected it all in your car.
In free boxes.
That's what you did. You weren't buying anything. You were storing things.
For those of you who don't know, I'm actually physically one of the messiest humans that has ever existed.
If you could see into the closets all around here.
Which people are always so surprised by because they meet my pristine teaching, clarity of consciousness. And then it's my shit would just be everywhere, everywhere. And I still have to work on it now to keep a clean bedroom. And I was very much, engaged in protest and revolutionary activities. And at the time, I think I was dumpster diving a lot. I was like, there's all this free organic food.
I would say some, yeah. I don't know about a lot. On the margins of the co-op community's dumpster diving schedule feels more accurate to me.
Yes, please don't let me
I'm here to hold Layla to standards. Yes, here
please don't let me overstate my case of how many times I went through the Whole Foods dumpster or the Berkeley Bowl.
You'll learn humility one day. It's a slow process, some vectors were fast on, others they take time.
All right, I am proud of the fact that I dumpster dived for a period of time. And then barbecued fish in the backyard
I don't think
fire.
one avocado counts,
It was more than that. But go on, what was the dumpster diving schedule?
No. I have nothing to follow. That I've really done what I came to do. No. Yeah. So I don't know what I should speak to specifically at this juncture.
Well, I wanted to bring people to that moment of time of where I was. And
actually, I can speak to that. I think so. Where I was in this point was on my own side of. I remember leaving college, being on trains, BART trains in the Bay Area, and just looking at adults sitting across from me, going to work, and just feeling this tiredness, kind of head down, flat expression, and kind of feeling another side of what you're saying, which is this needn't be how we live. And I think a lot of the ways what you presented was kind of a counterpoint to that. It felt consistent and alive. And so I was definitely looking for an out from what I saw as where most people were going in adulthood and tasted it in our interactions.
Yeah. All right, we're going to pause for just a moment and I'm going to invite you to join my email list. You might be like, email, but honestly, email is where I share my deepest teachings, my most personal stories, and my most outrageously good content. It's also where you can stay connected to all of the podcasts that I release and my programs where you can train more deeply with me. So if you want to join, head over to laylamartin.com and sign up with your best email address. So I remember you proposed romantic relationship first.
Yeah. And proposed it many times, first and second and third and fourth. The feeling was the friendship turned into strong attraction. I felt super desirous of you. And I remember at the time you were polyamorous and you basically said no a couple times in a row and then said, well, maybe I can work you into my polyamorous group. And I was
honestly don't remember that part.
I was fuck that. You were I felt like you were making a concession in conversation that was kind of maybe maybe this can happen. So a big turning point was I was super frustrated. And I remember one story, we were at the co-op and we kissed for the first time after we hadn't for many, at least, I don't know, maybe it was a month or so of me pushing. And we had this amazing kiss. And in this kiss, my heart opens up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm kissing her. This is so incredible. She's so wonderful. This is this huge thing. And then when we stopped, I looked at you and you said, I don't know why this isn't fun. And I was it was and you were totally straightforward in it. And that was super confusing to me. And I guess like next steps were like
I asked you to hitchhike to Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. You took the natural next step when you don't like someone and they love you and you want to be friends with them. You invite them to hitchhike to Mexico. So I was
please all remember I was 21.
Yeah. So I was like, how do I decipher this? Like, And what ended up happening was like, I was like, okay, this must mean she's ready for something beyond like, you can be my like, polyamorous, like add-on, like, third or fourth like lover. And then, so I said yes. I guess, I don't know if this was against my better judgment or not. And we hitchhiked to Mexico. We were going to take trains, but we decided to hitchhike instead. And the first place we stopped for any length of time was outside of Los Angeles. A friend of ours from the co-op had this like kind of abandoned landscape with like old cars and things like that. And we stayed with him and you like started hitting on him like the first time we interacted. And I was like, what have I done? Like, I've just like, taken a day or two's journey south and this is what's happening. So the trip to Mexico was where it all unfolded. And my memory is really that, from there, another little story before things opened up more was like, I'm forgetting how you sort of like brought your heart into it, but it was clear to me, like, into that journey that like you were willing to try. We talked about having sex. We like rented a bungalow, like explicitly for it after we had then been very like, had not had much like sexual interaction at the time. And like lit a bunch of candles and like made a whole long path from like the beach to the bungalow and everything. And like, it's like no pressure,
always
kid.
A good high priestess tantrika, like
totally
set up the sexual experience.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, I think it was overwhelming to me. I was like it didn't work. Like the sex, like initially, like was like not like a fit or functional for me early on of just being like, this is like too much pressure. I'm too nervous. Like cared too much, I think.
And I've often wondered, like in hindsight, because, an erotic connection did blossom between us. And I've wondered if in that first kiss, like that was my trauma of being loved that much. Like it was very clear how much you wanted me, how much of a full fuck yes you were, and how much you like actually saw me, like you didn't just want me, but you wanted me for who I was. And I don't know that my nervous system knew what to do with that. Like that didn't feel like love to me.
Yeah. I'm curious about, I definitely feel like I saw you and I get curious right now in the moment of like what also like I didn't see. Like there's definitely things I didn't see. Like I saw the, like in terms of your like trauma history or your defenses, like those things were totally unclear to me at that time. Or maybe I was just seeing the effects through kind of how you presented, but like your core, like signature, energetic signature, is still here. It was the same then, I think, honestly.
I remember like we started to connect and we started to get into a relationship and we made it all the way down to Oaxaca. And I remember like walking through the hills there with all of the, like, there's a lot of plant medicine and psilocybin and like medicine people there. And I remember being really touched by that culture at the time.
Yeah, we stopped in San Francisco de Macorís, like there on the way. Yeah, you talked about like having sex behind an altar in like the church in Oaxaca City. Like, I was like, this is fascinating.
You were
like
strong,
we were like
though.
in the church being, I think we ducked behind and like made out, but didn't actually have sex. Like, wow, like, which feels, I don't know, like a little weird culturally now as I look back on it, like as a foreigner in that space.
Totally.
So I think like, I'll probe into like what matters here for me. I mean, I don't know, I guess as things developed, what I saw was you moving from a place where you had never been like sexual with someone who you had like deep emotional connection with. Like you talked about like parties and like casual sex and like separating those two things. And like, I feel like I kind of, in some ways, like, I don't know, forced or at least provided like the template for you to like combine those two things, which is when I remember like you throwing up or hyperventilating in cars or like freaking out and starting to have memories of child sexual abuse. And like, and then that entered the our relationship. And in a lot of ways it felt rich and interesting and like welcome to me. Like I think it was a more complete picture of a person than I'd gotten, to sort of be able to hold high energy and like freedom and release and presence, along with like deep pain. And you were so like type A and read so much and like were so intent on engaging in like every activity you could possibly get your hands on for state of awareness, or like how to be practical with a toolbox in sex, that I was like fascinated. I watched you taking these steps into, I don't know exactly what happened to me. I don't know like what's going on. Like I'm having blurry memories, and but I know I'm like in some ways scared of sex, shutting down in sex. To like be, that was like the starting place for your inquiry. And like for me, like being in the presence of that was fascinating, and also came with risk in the future of kind of me making my life more about you than me, which like was sort of, I think, part of our undoing ultimately.
Yeah, the memories that I have are like that you wanted to look me in the eyes during lovemaking and be really connected, and like in experiencing the depth of the love you had for me and wanting to merge connection and love and sex. Like, yeah, I remember throwing up, like literally purging over the side of the bed, and just like the thing that was so humbling about all of that trauma was, I remember the first time that I went to like a spiritual therapist, but she was doing somatic healing therapy. And this was a little bit after those experiences were happening. And I was like, I think I need help. And I went to go see her, and she was like, what do you feel in your body? And I was like, I don't feel anything in my body. What are you talking about? Like, I don't feel below my neck. And just how humbling it was to go from being so excellent at school, being so accomplished, and feeling so untouchable. In many ways, I didn't feel fear. And I traveled the world by myself, 18, 19, 20, like traveled through Bangladesh and Myanmar and distant places in India. And I never felt scared, not once. I felt so invincible and so certain of myself, and so certain of reality, and so certain of right and wrong and good and bad and black and white. Right. And then you wanted to look me in the eyes and like make love. And all of a sudden I was so sick. Like I couldn't even function. And I remember getting like just disgust, like crawling all over my skin, and starting to really have to come to terms with how much sexual trauma I was carrying in my body. And how humbling that was. And I remember going from feeling so much of the poetry and the magic and the vibrancy and the beauty of life to having like an entire year of it being so gray. Like I finally felt the dissociation in my body and the trauma and the pain and how hard that was. And yeah, to your eternal credit, being so young yourself, you were so down to support me in that healing journey, which was so beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. It was a joy. I mean, I was like raised in a, not religious now, but like in a Catholic household, and like alleviation of suffering was something that felt like resonant with me early on, like as being like, hell yeah, like let's do this. And it's still true today. And so like in a lot of ways, like the banner of my life at that period was like, let's heal Layla, like mixed in with that was like me like looking up to you, but like from a way of putting myself below you. I think that like the lesson for me was like losing myself in you. And like there was this like belief that like somehow the quality of like your being or who you were was like more valuable than mine. And like I had that tendency with others too, like around some things, but like yeah, so it's like, it's interesting. Like the desire to heal was like this focal point. So I get to watch your process and like participate in it and be with you in it, like while in love. And then also like in a way kind of forget myself, or like learn like what it was like to function from a place of like sort of prioritizing another person like above yourself. So
totally. Let's take a little pause from the podcast, and I'm going to tell you about my signature 1-year program. This is the Vita Sex, Love, and Relationship Coaching Certification, and it is for you if you have dreamed of giving your gifts as a sex, love, and or relationship coach with a holistic and spiritual lens. This program starts as a personal deep dive, allowing you to transform your own experience of sex, love, and relating. It then trains you in a profound methodology that allows you to become a confident and masterful coach, and it trains you in business skills so that you can effectively sell your coaching packages to high-end clients in a way that feels heart-centered and filled with soul. If you want to have a lifestyle that you are super excited about, create your own work hours, and have a meaningful impact in the world, go to laylamartin.com/Vita Coaching. That's VITA, laylamartin.com/Vita Coaching. If you've wanted to learn sacred sexuality with your partner and deep dive into the most exquisite intimacy, I created the Tantric Mastermind with my beloved Dr. Babak Amen to be able to take you on the journey of a lifetime. This program includes 2 live retreats, one in a castle in England, one in the magical deserts of Sedona, so that you can learn sexual mastery and the art of the deepest intimacy and fall in love in the most magical ways together in these incredible locations. It's meant to be the education of a lifetime, but also the romantic adventure of a lifetime. If you're curious to learn more, head on over to laylamartin.com/Tantric Mastermind. And so then I finished school and you came to get me in a giant chicken costume. Like when I finished my last test.
It's true, a costume for both of us. Yeah. You wanted a tail. It was very important for you to have a tail. I think when you got your costume on, you checked it immediately. It was one of these like full body costumes. Yeah, there's still photos of this stuff. Yeah.
You literally marched onto Stanford campus in a chicken costume with like lace up. There was like a lace up part over your calves and you were like carrying a boom box.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God this happened. Yeah. One of these beautiful moments. May there be many, many more. Yeah.
And then I was like, I think in my memory, right? Because some of this, when you're thinking back to that time, I was like, I want to go find the real Tantra. Like, let's go to Asia.
Yep.
And I remember we went and I was like, I feel like it's on this island. Like I was like really working with like psychic skills and energy skills. Yeah. And we ended up going to a Tantra school that ended up being pretty abusive, but it had a good starting program, as all good cults, right? Like the entry part is like pretty compelling or else it wouldn't be successful. So I won't promote it here by saying its name because they did a lot of damage to a lot of people. But the actual program was great. Like if you stayed away from the teachers, then the program was very solid. And it's actually a tragedy that they did such a good job building such an amazing program for Tantra and for the practices, because the reason why that school was so popular was because they offered a kind of practice that was so incredible and the opportunity to study for years. And this is far before Me Too. So there was just rampant sexual abuse, rampant sexual violations happening. We didn't really find out about that until later. Like there were some rumors, but it took like a while to really come to terms with it and the heartbreak of that school. But when we originally got there, it was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Oh, and I always remember that when we got to Bangkok, I remember being like, oh, when people go to Asia, they get names, they get spiritual names, right?
Totally.
Which I realize is a very white person perspective on what is a very sacred practice of adopting a new name of your lineage in order to declare that you are being reborn into that lineage. And at the time, being 21, I was like, we need travel names.
Totally. I don't remember who named who. I remember our names, obviously, but like, I don't know how we picked these.
I became Muff Muff Martin.
And Mop Cheney.
And for years, I was enrolled in Tantra school as Muff Muff Martin, to the point where I would go do my like check-ins with like the guru, and he'd be like, Muff Muff, welcome. Like literally for years, people knew me as Muff Muff. So if you ever want OG Layla, anyone who remembers me as Muff Muff is definitely
Totally. I think they're fitting names. I can clean up a good mess, as mom. Or at least start to clean up.
And I'm eternally muff. Yeah. And so we started, like, that was my first deep dive into like truly classical tantric practices, like Kundalini activation and mantras and hatha yoga. And it was so special to get to spend that time together.
Yeah. I mean, I remember landing on the island and kind of having a tacky billboard for the name of the yoga school up front, being like, let's do it. And like meeting the people who were there for the first time and having like a clarity of expression in them, like their eyes much more alive, like this, like, cult-like glow, but in a way that was also really appealing. Like
it always is.
It speaks to the train moment I mentioned earlier of like, what are alternative ways of living? And the energy that was really beautiful. Like the people who are engaged in deeper practice, they were going multiple times, like over multiple years and staying for 3 or 4 months at a time, sometimes longer than that. So again, like a reminder of, what's possible with humanity, like where we can go. I think a lot of them, like in connecting with them, it showed that they were on inner journeys that mattered to them. And even watching them since, like they've done interesting things in the world. So,
I think that was the heartbreaking thing about that school was it had an incredible amount of very dedicated people who really resonated with the practices and really resonated with the teachings. And then when you kind of got deep enough into it, there was this very warped core. Like I would say like the guru was an actual sex addict and was, actively sexually violated me, harassed and sexually violated so many other people. And many of his teachers did as well. And that was so heartbreaking to feel that dichotomy of this beautiful practice and such an incredible community being so misused.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if you want to unpack more the sexually violated me. And I remember you talking about like opting into it and signing up for a sexual experience with him and feeling like a mismatch sort of, and like that, like he wasn't bringing the energy that you wanted. I don't know if we can leave it at that, I suppose, or if you want to elaborate. Like, I guess part of me is like remembers the story differently from when you first told it to me. And I wonder if, you feel clear on kind of lines he crossed that you set down or something like that, like in that experience.
Yeah, I already shared it publicly. So it was that I would go in for private initiations and over the course of 2 years, I would say like, I don't want to sleep with you. I don't want to sleep with you. And during the initiations, like in his private office, he would pull me into his lap and stroke my body and be like, you want this, you so want this, like, this is a yes for you. And I literally ran out of his office like twice. And he told me point blank, like, you are missing out on an enlightenment because you won't sleep with me. And I had so I had a consensual sexual experience, but I also had some very violating experiences as well. And then he actively raped one of my friends while I was there. So
yikes. These are some of these pieces I didn't know. So yeah, thanks for like updating me as to like some of the darker sides.
You weren't with me by the time all of that happened. Like you and I had split by then. We were only together, I think, the first year or two I was at the school.
Yeah, like 2 cycles maybe.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
2 summers or
the first 2 years. But what I do remember is that you went to the workshop naked.
Yeah, that's true. I went to there was a Tantra 1 workshop, which we were all so giddy for. It's like, please, we've been doing all of this Hatha yoga and Laya yoga. Like, can we please like learn about sex in like a more like focused way? And yeah, I took the action. I was like, this is a Tantra workshop. I'm going to show up naked. So yeah, like I walked into a room, a mosquito netted yogi tent, essentially, with like 30 or 40 people, like completely naked, and was like, they were all like, they froze. I was tense as hell. Like I walked like in like rigidly, presenting this energy of like, I'm scared, but I'm doing it. Please accept me. What's my penis size like in the freezing cold, right? It wasn't that freezing cold. This is just, some part of me that wanted to get out right there.
It was the tropics.
Yeah. And I was like, they came up to me and they were like, you can't do this here. was like, we're going to watch videos about people making love and talk about them having sex and like describe scenes and like go home and practice. It feels totally crazy that this would be rejected. But it was. And, rather than like pushing the issue and like really taking a firm stance on it, I guess left and got the clothes outside the hall and came back in. So.
I remember getting all of these texts being like, will you please tell Ryan to put his clothes on? This is not acceptable. He has shown up to the retreat naked. And I texted back and I was like, and I didn't say this part, but I will now, in the name of all women everywhere who have ever been asked to control their male partner, like I am not his keeper. I was like, he does what he wants.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I feel like one of the things I remember is us learning pussy massage and like really engaging in some really beautiful sexual healing techniques.
Yeah. I mean, coming up on the top of my mind for things that like were particularly potent for me. One of them was like a lot of like in the line of your pussy massage, like how to be in pleasure with you without you shutting down. And like initially, like just so many experiences of like approaching orgasm or having orgasm being like difficult. So like my memory is like sometimes watching your eyes shift to kind of like a blank stare, or like stopping like and crying at times, or like sex became really complicated, I think, at that point in my life with you, like good old P&V sex, wherein like oftentimes because I was so used to you not having a lot of pleasure in that space, like when you actually were having pleasure and like relaxing and releasing, like it overwhelmed me because I was almost used to this dynamic where I could get only so much of you and access you that way, that like, yeah, watching you embrace sex, it would be like, I would like immediately ejaculate, for example. And it was like, that's an issue. So finding a space that was like stable, where, I was sort of monitoring how you were doing a lot, of being like, is she shutting down? How's she doing? And staying attentive to that. And also intimidated by like your entry into starting to find like more pleasure and being able to embody it. So it was kind of like lovely and fickle as I remember it, like difficult, like complicated. Yeah.
And what would you say now? Like, I know we were very young back then and didn't always know what we were doing, but just for anyone who has a partner who has that level of sexual trauma, like, what do you feel like you learned? Like you mentioned some of it in terms of like attuning and tracking and looking for dissociation and slowing down. Is there anything else that you would recommend?
Yeah, interesting. Let me just take a second and look inside. I think the core challenge was like understanding life as you experienced it, because I, to my knowledge, don't have a sexual trauma history. So there was a moment I remember watching a video that like simulated a person like going through sexual abuse and like their experience. And it was a clicking moment for me of like, oh, this is maybe what it feels like for Layla to like give the expression that I've seen her give. I don't really know what facilitates like a smooth path to being able to take on a person's subjective experience that's like pretty different from what you've experienced in the past. But I remember that after being with you enough, there were these moments of starting to feel like I could taste what your experience would be like in fear. It was yeah, so that kind of bridged things. And before that bridge started to happen, it was like I had goodwill and I had observation, but it was like also there was a feeling of a gulf between what I could experience and what you were experiencing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of the root of all relational trauma healing, right? Is not to overly empathize with the person, like taking on
Mm,
someone's pain
mm,
doesn't really get anyone anywhere,
yeah.
but making the attempt to put yourself into someone's shoes and asking like, how would that have felt to me?
Mm,
And how is this person's behavior the most intelligent response
mm,
given their experience, their vantage point, what
mm,
they went through?
yeah.
And I think you did a really beautiful job of that, because
Mm,
in future relating or relationships, I was with people who just didn't do that. And when I asked them to do that, they really couldn't. So they took my trauma behavior at face value, and there was a lot more criticism or resistance or anger. And I feel like one of your gifts was that you really endeavored to understand what it would have been like, and also to understand why someone like me, like so filled with life and so passionate and so powerful, would have such deep responses of shutdown or dissociation or rage or all the things that were coming through me. And that's not to allow someone, what I had to learn in my life is I'm still an adult and I have to take full responsibility for my actions and my impact on others. And I didn't always have that vantage point when I was with you. So it's not a justification for someone to act out traumatized behaviors, but it opens your heart so much more when you can put yourself in someone's shoes and say, why might they behave this way? I think that's one of the biggest things missing from our world right now is actually feeling the intelligence of someone's behavior based on their worldview and their experiences. That doesn't mean it's okay if it's having toxic impact, but it does mean that I feel like it softens our hearts into understanding each other more, even if we still have healthy boundaries.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I'm a therapist now, and like some of the most transformational moments in my life are ones in which I can do exactly what you just described, which is like feel like I'm experiencing something subjectively that I haven't from the other person's perspective, like really get the flavor. Like there are almost these little aha moments like, oh, finally I understand what that might like feel like, even though I haven't been through it. I mean, I could give a concrete example or not. I'll roll back the tape a little bit because this came up also while you were speaking, which is like when you asked about what lessons I would offer, like I'm like, I can tend to be ruinously empathetic as we sort of had as a theme here, like to use like Kim Scott's language. And what I remember early on and before Thailand, living in Berkeley, was when you were breaking down and sad, I would join you and break down and sad too. It was like to watch you cry and like shake and feel bad about your like experience. Like I like joined you in that. I was like, oh God, also yes, like, oh, this is, and you were like, stop. I don't need that. Like what I need is like a stable container that can hold me in this, and like to know that you can be like that, Ryan, you can be okay like while I'm breaking down. And like that was a really important like first step of me, like, oh, like I thought she would feel better that like I care so much and that your sadness like equals my sadness and transfers to me. And it's like not it's not true, obviously. Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways like some of the undoing of our relationship also reflects these things of like like let me see, I lost the thread internally, so let me find it before just spewing some bullshit that doesn't feel true. Yeah, just like back to like not losing myself, essentially, like being able to hold intensity, be present with intensity, being able to hold aliveness and pain, and like not have that replace who I am.
This is Sex Magic, and it's designed to basically make your body feel more glittery, more turned on. It's got all kinds of amazing herbs in it. It's sweetened with monk fruit. It's colored with beetroot. It's got this beautiful combination of saffron in it and shilajit and all kinds of activating things, dopaminergics that make your body feel more pleasure. It's really powerful. Oh, and huperzine A, which is a nootropic moss. That was like the thing we were the most proud of. We were like, we put so many herbs in it and it actually tastes good. Feel deeper arousal and heightened sensitivity in as little as 30 minutes. Try it now at shopmood.com. We have glorious sex magic now with a little floating flower from our bouquet.
How much time do we have for this?
We usually edit this very quickly so as not to bore people. Sales, but not boredom. Cool. So this is from Mood, which is my sexy supplement company. And this is called Sex Magic. And it's this beautiful purple elixir. And it's designed to just give you this glittery, luscious, activated feeling. And I use it before yoga or doing my meditation or first thing in the morning. But you can also take it before sex to feel more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank
Cheers.
you.
It was actually what's interesting is Raaka was a very early precursor of this.
Amen. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, and how would you? Raaka was a raw chocolate
Who's
company.
stalking me? And really was like, of course she's going to, she mentioned it now.
Raaka was, my original vision was, I was like, I want a raw chocolate aphrodisiac company that teaches people that their endogenous chemicals are so magical that they don't ever have to take drugs. And I wanted like naked sex witches to be making it in, spaces in Oakland before.
Which you kind of did. Like a warehouse in Oakland, like Music District is close enough.
Yep.
Lascivious Alchemists was the name initially at Coco Raw.
Exactly. Lascivious Alchemists. And the first batch was in fact made by naked people. And then I realized that is highly illegal.
Totally. Yeah, your health code practices like ours, I guess. I sort of joined in. Yeah. So I don't think
speaking of health code,
the truth is I wouldn't have started the chocolate company and grown it if like you hadn't been like, I need a real man who's like self-directed and who can build something from scratch. And I was like, okay, like please like make a project that can like show the world that you know how to direct yourself. I mean, honestly, I think these were definitely the roots of us so the audience that doesn't know this, when we were in Thailand, what we would do was Ashley Apple was traveling with a suitcase full of herbs from around the world that she was buying from mountainroseherbs.com if you want to buy it now. And we were hand rolling raw chocolate aphrodisiac truffles as part of a workshop.
Yeah.
And like basically Pavlovian training ourselves to like never walk away from them by having them every time, like to consecrate our sexual experiences before having sex. So saying like, you know, what is this about for us? And like, let's check in more fully here. Like let's drop defenses if we can. Let's pick an intention. And so we were eating these chocolate aphrodisiac truffles that we made. Some of the ingredients which still exist now here in the drinks we're drinking. And yeah, I think this is part of like starting the chocolate company was like, I need a man who's like directed. It was one of the messages at the conclusion of our relationship, which I think in some ways was valuable. Like
I would just like to say that this is when I talk about not engaging in a misreading of David Data's way of the superior man and then harassing your man for not being man enough. It was a pretty classic example of me basically being like, you're not man enough. This is what I need, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that, there's nothing like starting a company and then telling your partner he needs to be better at being an entrepreneur.
Well, no, you told me this before I started the company.
Okay.
I started on the tail. It was like in the breakup, the message was kind of like, I need more self-direction. And I was like, I think her critique is valid, really. Like looking at it, I was like, this feels true.
I think the actual feedback I could have given you was, as you've referenced in this, you were losing yourself in the relationship and you were erasing your own needs and desires and wants in service to me. Yeah. And there is something unsexy about that, unless
so unsexy about that. Yeah. I mean, it's a mix because some of what was me was this like fascination with healing and like co-participating in like what healing looks like in sex, like to have your clarity and like communication, like ability and like willingness, like as you went through this was like super rich for me. So like that was like sort of, self-serving insofar as like, I'm like witnessing what a human being can do, mixed in also with erasure, kind of both in different ways.
No, it was both. It's so nuanced because in some ways, like you really stood for my healing in such a magnificent way. And I do think there was a truth to the fact that like you saw my beauty. And you also saw that like for all of my traumatized behavior, I was like, I want to heal this. Like, I don't want to be this person. And you were really moved by that, which is amazing. There's such a gift in that. And then your shadow was that you were erasing yourself in it. And my shadow, I mean, the way that I look back at our relationship was that I had just started to heal and open my sexuality. And I would say by the end of our relating, I had restored a fair degree. I mean, it was 3.5 years of pleasure and ability to feel and connection to my body. And I remember when we did, when we did our first tantric initiation lovemaking on the goddess of love. And I remember us doing a mantra to activate the goddess of love and making love. And I think that was the first time I ever remember being like, holy shit, like this work, like this is magical lovemaking. Wow, this is what's possible between two people. And that was so special. But I don't think that my heart ever truly opened
Mm.
and that there was still such a profound dissociation from my heart.
Mm.
And it took me a very long time to realize that I healed and opened my sexuality long before I healed and opened my heart, that it was actually far scarier to be in like a potency of true open-heartedness and true love. And that was honestly one of the greatest gifts of the end of our relationship was when I spent probably a year integrating. I mean, integrating for a long period of time, but really integrating for a year. And I would be up at night, like tossing and turning. And I remember just having this very specific thought form of like, I am a good fucking person and I am smart and I care. And Ryan is a good fucking person and he's smart and he cares. And that was the best we could do. And at the end, it was a disaster. Like we hurt each other so deeply. And I feel like I did not treat you any way that you deserved to be treated. I didn't know how to honor you back then. I emasculated you and critiqued you and judged you and told you to be different. And then like couldn't feel my own heart and eventually just became attracted to other people and left. And I remember being up and just the feeling of like, I have been through hell and healing my trauma. And this is a worst feeling that I wish I could have loved someone better than I did. And in sitting with that, this like heartbreak of like, holy shit, like I tried as hard as I could and I still hurt this person so bad. And I still did not treat him the way that he deserved. And I had this like really deep resolve that I would never do that again. And it took a lot of work to change my relational patterns and my relational behavior, to be devoted, to be kind and not angry, to put myself in someone else's shoes. Like none of that came when I was with you. It was like I did this tremendous sexual healing. Like I would say my pussy activated. I learned the magic of tantric sexuality. I felt loved by you, but my own self-perception was so distorted that I was like, sure, there was something deeply wrong with you, because I was like, anyone who could love me this much, when I perceive myself to be this fucked up, like there must be something wrong with you. And it took me a really long time actually recognize the gift of what you had given me and us in that period. And so I really like dedicated myself to relational behavior, because I was like, fuck man, if that was, if that was what I did, given so much love and so much beautiful treatment from someone, like I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah. I mean, I take responsibility too. Like I appreciate you taking responsibility for like, pain and harm and like the like unraveling. We can kind of get in that story if we want or not. But yeah, like there's lessons in it too. Like, right. Like it's one thing to get knocked down and never get back up again. And it's another thing to get knocked down and sort of have better understanding of like who you are. Like I also know that I'm in a different place in terms of being able to like fundamentally see myself and not like forget like the value of what I'm offering, and not like compare myself to others in a way that like I measure up short. And for that matter, like that's an important practice for me, like with like all people. Like it's like it needs to happen with the self, but like it's like I think a lifelong thread for me of like do I compare people and put some people above others, and like it matters. So yeah, like I take some responsibility for it too. And I like, mixed in with all of this pain were all of these like beautiful moments of like such aliveness, like that were pretty consistently throughout the whole thing. Right. So it's like the color on life gets turned up, the vibrance on life gets turned up, like the amount of feeling that there is so huge. The clarity to which you can like see what's happening in another person's life is like so much more like detailed and like, like right present in your field of view. So this is like happening alongside the what I like you talking about never like hurting someone in the same way again. So I mean, like I definitely feel like I'm in a place of acceptance over like when everything happened. I don't know, if we want to talk about like the unraveling or of the relationship or.
So one of the things when you said health code violations is I just wanted to tell an early entrepreneur story when I was running Lascivious Alchemists, which then became Coco Ra, which then became Raaka, which you can now get at Whole Foods. Was that after the, sex switches making it naked in a warehouse in Oakland, like didn't work out. I then got a industrial kitchen in Brooklyn. And I don't know if you remember this, but the health inspectors came, like the New York health inspectors came while I was in the industrial kitchen. And they were like talking to like these women in Brooklyn that owned the kitchen, and like this big fight broke out. And they were basically like, this is unclean. This is unsanitary. And the Brooklyn people were like, this is New York. Everything's unclean. And the health inspector like hit it was like the ceiling over the counter, and like an actual rat fell out.
This is totally off my radar.
Health inspector was like, you failed the test. And the Brooklyn people were like, this is Brooklyn. There's rats everywhere. And I was like, I might be done. This industrial kitchen. So they gave me one of those Fs, like, they give you the score in New York. I got like an F for my industrial kitchen.
I don't know where I was when this happened, but like, yeah.
I was like, holy shit. So anyways, that's a good early entrepreneur journey story. And then also when we made our first batch of cocoa Raaka chocolates.
You selling them at Earth Dance.
And like almost no one bought them. So I lost like $4,000 of like what was like a huge sum of money at that time for a young person. And I just remember crying on the frozen ground at Earth Dance, which is this festival in Northern California, being like, I'm a fucking failure. And like, that was so painful. And I like telling that story because I think early entrepreneurship is very hard. It's important for people to know that and to keep going. And then I want to tell a story of you that I always thought was so beautiful, which was we left Tantra school and we went back to New York and we were living in Brooklyn. And you went to an Ivy League school and then worked for a tech company, and you were like, I'm going to become a stripper for a little while. And you,
it's true. You
did go-go dancing at Splash.
Yep. And 20 Club, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yep. And you were like, I want to support you to heal. And so I remember there would be like a stack of cash.
Yeah, bad decision.
behind our mattress.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the most beautiful things anyone ever did for me at that time was I remember saying like, I really want to go do this like amazing healing workshop. And you like went to your safe and got like all the money you'd saved up. And you were like, the most beautiful thing I can think to do with money is to support you to heal. And you gave it to me. I don't remember if I ever used it. I don't remember what happened with it, but I always remembered the gesture of that. And maybe you'll say that it was self-sacrificing codependency, but what I took away from it, and which I still hold to this day, and which is a deep belief of mine, is that in those moments with the people that we love, like radical love is so important, which is different than, oh, I have no boundaries. I'm just going to give everything beyond my like truth. But like, no, like I love you. Like, how are we going to do this together? It's like so beautiful.
Yeah. No, I remember that for sure. No, I have mixed feelings hearing it. like to your, was this like self-sacrifice or something? I remember like helping fund some of your Thailand adventures. It was really weird. It was a dark moment. Like I was loving go-go dancing, like, and still have like very fond memories of kind of what it's like to move like for money and to engage with people for money, and like in my space to feel safe doing it. To like come home with lots of cash, like on trains in New York City at like 3 a.m, 4 a.m, like kind of bleary eyed and like exhausted.
Well, two of my favorite stories of that was I remember when you went to go get hired at Splash, you said, oh my God, you'll never believe this story. Like I went and there was like some guy, I think he was smoking a cigarette and like a dirty velvet curtain. And he was basically like, take your pants off. And so you did. And he was like, turn around.
That must have been a different bar than Splash, but yeah, that danced in a couple bars. And like
then he was like, you're hired. Come back on Saturday.
Totally.
You said that was like, that really worked for you. And then also the other story I remember is that you were like dancing so intensely. And the manager was like, you have to be on so many drugs. Like nobody could dance all night like this. Like you must be high as like you're crazy. And you were like, no, I just learned breathing techniques in Thailand. Like I'm doing the microcosmic orbit. It helps me stay up all night. And I was like,
well, this was a like really interesting relationship between the yoga school we were, because like I left with this this question of what love was. So like we were reading a lot of Osho, and there was this question of like, how can love express? And so I was really bringing that to like, in many ways, Tantra was like, for me, an introduction into like thinking about like presence and love in different ways. So like when go-go dancing, like a lot of what like I was looking for was like to really meet people like fully in the moment, and like, to ask this question of, can you love someone in like a non-transactional way in the now? And like, how much can you love them not even knowing them?
I think most people would argue that go-go dancing has some level of transactionality to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, totally. Yeah. So exactly. It's like looking for, where's the edge of that, you know, like,
Yeah.
like, can I be here for this person? How much can I like see them? Like, how much can I welcome them? How much can I like reveal of myself? Like, what can we build in a short period of time? Which sounds like, you know, maybe like just sort of abstract and a jumble of words, but like, really what I was like finding was that like a lot of people in those spaces really do want human connection and really do want to be seen as people who are just, you know, drunk or on drugs and just want to be an animal body rubbing on them too. But that was there, the like, the who are you? Like, can we be together? Can I feel some degree of specialness and clarity in our interaction? And like, it was like fascinating to be able to like work a job where I could like move, be sexual, dance, meet people, and also like try at bringing how much love I could basically. And yeah, I had a number of experiences where people were like giving me amazing feedback about like what it meant to kind of be in presence with someone, as opposed to sort of like, I'm going to look at you with dollar signs in your eyes and like put on a show.
Yeah. I remember a couple of things from that. I remember the manager being like, it's disgusting. Like, you're willing to give it to everyone. Just this love. Like, he was like, old people, short people, poor people. Like, you just like give it away. And he was like, come back on Saturdays, because Saturday was like when you could make the most money. And I always remembered that you had such a good time. And then one night you came home and you were like, I feel sick. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, what'd you do differently? You were like, I let everything in. You were like, I let the experience penetrate me. I let men penetrate, like energetically, like penetrate me. And you were like, I feel sick and I don't want to do it. Whereas before you were like yang energy, like out. And I always thought that was so instructive of like receptive energy, which a lot of women carry, and like the tenderness of that, and how like if you put your energy out, like it feels protected in a way. And as soon as you let energy in, it's so vulnerable. And I really felt for like the female dancing experience, if you're allowing that vulnerability, how much more intense that is.
Yeah.
So
I just felt very in control of my body, which I feel like very privileged, like that I could like stop or like control people, that I wasn't like, the
last piece of your stripping career that I remember was we used to have arguments early on, maybe even before we were a couple, where you would be like, everybody is bisexual. And it'd be in the kitchen of the co-op. And I was like, no, I was like, it's a spectrum. I was like, some people are straight and some people are gay and lots of people are in between. And we'd literally like fight about it. And then I remember you coming home one night though, where you were ostensibly like playing gay and you were like, okay. You're like, I'm admittedly more straight than I am.
Yeah. Totally. No, it was very clear. Like there were many, like, you know, I learned a lot about my sexuality, like dancing. And one of the things was that like, you know, like being more turned on more quickly by women was like my experience, like consistently through that.
And I forget a lot of things, but I'll never forget being right.
Yeah. You remember it too often, I think, even, you know.
You're a guy and you want to be able to separate orgasm and ejaculation. If you want to be able to last as long as you desire, if you want to be multi-orgasmic, but more than anything else, you want to know that you are a masterful lover who can give extraordinary sexual pleasure and gifts to your beloved, then I have created a 6-week training called Men's Sexual Mastery. And this training will take you through beginner, intermediate, and advanced sexual practices so that you can learn all of the foundational skills like breath work, sexual meditations, pelvic floor exercises that will enable you to have all of these sexual skills and also train you in the presence and emotional healing to be able to be an extraordinary lover of deep power and deep connection. If you are interested in joining this program, you can head on over to laylamartin.com/men's sexual mastery. All right, let's talk about the end of our relationship.
Yeah. What I recall was super painful.
That was horrific.
I remember like the sort of lead into it for me was like a phone call. I remember walking in Brooklyn. You were traveling. I don't know if you were in Egypt yet, but you were traveling. And this feeling of non-apology came up for me for the first time. So basically, we both took the same lover. You took a lover in Thailand, a woman who I won't name. And after taking that lover, I came back to New York. I hadn't been with other people. I hadn't slept with other people, even though we were in an open relationship. You had with a couple of people.
Well, let's back up for a second because it's interesting at the beginning of this when you said that I identified as polyamorous because I've actually never identified as that the rest of my life. And most of our relationship was monogamous.
That's true.
And I remember towards the end of our relationship saying, I want to be open. And I remember doing it in a very unconscious way. Like it wasn't like, oh, do we want this together? It was just basically like.
My memory is different.
I want to be open.
The first time, so you were open 2 periods, I think 2 summers toward the end of our relationship. The first one, you made a case. And I remember you saying, you know, or at least maybe I made a case in my head, but like there's this yoga instructor on Koh Phangan that I'm attracted to, that I'm drawn to. And I don't know if what I remember you saying, and this is me creating this story in my head, is basically I've combined sex and intimacy with you, Ryan, for the first time. It's been fraught. It's difficult. There's like these challenges around being triggered and shutting down sexually. And like all of my growth and development around learning how to be sexual is also like with your face and your energy and like all of the painful moments. Also, I have this association of you of like, when it's great, there's Ryan. And when it's hard, there's Ryan. And saying what I'm curious about is whether I can have a new context with a different person wherein in pleasure, I don't have this association of the person I've been with where all of the shutdowns also happen and have been difficult. So maybe this is me creating your like rationale for opening the relationship, or maybe that was your messaging to me. I'm confused about that.
I also really remember that actually first with a female lover. I remember having a female lover first. Yeah.
I remember that person. Yeah.
Where I was like, actually, I feel like being with a woman could possibly be very healing because I'd never truly been with a woman up until that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Yeah. So we sort of did two periods of open relationship, and both of them I was in New York at the time when you were in Thailand. The first one I remember being incredibly difficult for me. Like I said, I didn't take any lovers, and like this whole, like my experience was this person kind of going to the top of the totem pole, your lover basically, and me kind of comparing themselves to them, and like working as like a spiritual practice to sort of ingest the stories of what y'all's experiences were, because you were having like wonderful experiences with lots of pleasure with that person, and to say like her pleasure is my pleasure, like let go of jealousy, like you're a different person than this other person, you don't need to be the same as them, and like it can be beautiful for her to have those experiences with him. And like working on that, and a lot of like me being in like a Jeep, just like outside of brunch, where my mom's sitting waiting for me, just like kind of crying as I was getting messages back about like, oh my God, my orgasms are so incredible. Like they're really, I cried for like, 10 minutes at the end of sex. And
to be fair, you asked for the details.
Yeah, I asked for the details. Yeah, no, exactly. I asked for the details.
I wasn't just being horrific and texting them to you.
Yeah. And so for me, it was like, I was looking for evidence of your growth, like, right? Like I wanted the success story. I wanted to be still with what you were going through.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to see you like grow and heal and like rejoin you in that space of being like, I have more freedom. Like this association is looser. So yeah, it was intensely painful for me that time. And that first summer, I didn't take any other lovers. I tried, I went on dates with people, but like was so obsessed with you essentially that like, it just felt weird to like kiss anyone else, or it was like all so forced. It was like, there isn't a draw to this person. Like my attention was still on you. We rejoined in Thailand, and then we did another phase of this, another season later. Different lovers, difficult for me, but in this way, I think I had sort of, the second round was different for me. Like, I don't think I was as in touch with like the meaning. I wasn't like making meaning around your progress in being in an open relationship. And like, I was more challenging myself. Like I have to take a lover because we have to like balance this thing a little bit. So still painful.
And I feel like I had a real Carrie from Sex and the City moment where basically, to your eternal credit and point, I feel like in some ways I kind of forced you into an open relationship. It didn't feel like you truly deeply wanted to be in one. And that it wasn't, I don't know. You were taking it as a spiritual path. I remember that. Like you were reading a lot of Osho. You were taking this as like, what is compersion? Like, can I find the pleasure and joy in someone else's pleasure and joy, which was really beautiful. And also partially probably bypassing some of yourself as well in a way that was partially dishonoring. And in that, we had a mutual friend, a woman who I slept with. That I remember you slept with her.
Later,
and I was like, how dare you sleep with my friend?
Yeah. Totally.
Like, that was like, clearly I did not have the capacity or emotional maturity at that time to handle the pain and the jealousy and all of that. And I was just projecting a story all over you. And so it went, to my mind, extraordinarily badly.
I remember the phone call where that was the phone call I was referencing, where like you were, how dare you sleep with my friend? And I was like making this point of like, Layla, you slept with this person. Like you've slept with several people and I've slept with zero. And I'm sleeping with someone you've slept with, and, you had your points, you couldn't litigate anything. Right. Like, but on that phone call, I remember being like, I'm not taking your perspective. Like it just felt clear to me like this, it was like the end of the line. I think like, in self-erasure, one of our things that happened in our dynamics was me like kind of taking your perspective on things. Like Layla is confident, like Layla knows like how to see the world. Layla has a reference frame. And I would start with mine and sometimes they would align. And when they wouldn't, oftentimes I would take yours. And this was an experience of being like, fuck this, like being like, no, this is like, sort of patent, like truth way, like a double standard that's like, that I'm not willing to like sort of get behind.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I was sobbing all through Europe. Like I just didn't know. I was young and like it hurt so bad. And I don't think I knew how to deal with the hurt. And back then I didn't know how to not turn my hurt into a story as opposed to just feeling it. Like I think it took me a long time to say, ouch.
Totally. Part of the journey. So yeah, I guess the way that it ended was like, that was kind of an initial turning point. And then the other was, like, I guess what really cracked it was funny. It was a betrayal. Like I like pushed you against your will on a phone call to commit to not being sexual with someone that like, and you were like, I could feel you digging in, being like, please, please, please. And I had a ticket to Egypt where you were for like, I think a week from then or something like that, a week and a half from then. And I was like, just wait a week and a half or something like this till I'm there. And like, this is hurting us. Like our open relationship is no longer like fruitful. Like it's damaging the relationship. You're like, but can we just this? Can we just that? And I was like, no. And I was like pushing. And then you're like, you kind of reluctantly agreed basically. And I put a lot of like confidence in that like that was the agreement basically. Then I talked to you like, I don't know, a few days later on a phone call, on a Skype call or something. And you sort of casually dropped in like I was with this person and I like lost my shit. So what I did was like, first,
to be fair, I kissed him once on the lips. So like to this day, the only breach of trust I've ever had. And yes, because my heart wasn't in it, but I only kissed him.
I remember like a state that I'd never been in before, which was like just pure rage that like I was like threatening to like kill you. I was in Brooklyn and you were in Egypt and I was like screaming at you that I would like fucking kill you on the call. And like, I remember feeling that for the first time. Like, it's like, I collapsed into this state where it was like, you were just like pure evil sort of. Like the place I was coming from was that it felt like I had this worldview where the love I was offering was like real and authentic and also like based on you and for you. And it felt like there's this like degree of like inconceivability, like that like you would sort of like break that thing or something like that. So I lost my shit, said fuck you, I'll kill you many times. Like I was really, really super. I remember like being over the laptop, like screaming at you, and then just shut the laptop and like left. And I was like, I'm going to just walk away from here. Like I'm going to walk as long as I need to away from my apartment, through Brooklyn to wherever I land. As I walk, I'm still like in this highly charged state. And I pass this like roll gate that says, "Don't you know that true love asks for nothing?" Like a Stevie Wonder quote, like sprayed on a roll gate. And like, I was like marinating it as I was walking, and I was like, this isn't who I am. Like, I just told Layla I would fucking kill her, like, screamed at her. And I was like, a piece of me came and said, Ryan, like, you should go back and tell her, like, that's not who you really are. Like, that's you at a broken state, not like your like core essence. Like, you should clarify that to her. So I turned around and I started walking back home. And then walking home, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're so like involved in this other person. You should take care of yourself. Like, now is the time. You've been hurt. Like, take care of yourself. Like, you know, the promise is broken. Like, and so I started walking away again past the same fucking sign again. And it was like, no. Like, I have an idea. Like, I can actually like do something more beautiful here, which is like this spiritual aspiration thing. And my idea was to, on the call with you, go to the deepest place in me. I had this idea that I had a very deep wound from that, and like speak, like get in touch with that place on the phone with you, tell you I was there, and ask you to apologize from a similarly deep place in yourself to this deep place in me that was hurt. And that I was going to try to like breathe in and take in your apology, that like this mattered to you. You realized you'd hurt me, and that like you were deeply sorry. Boot up Skype again, call you back. I remember the dynamics. I remember we're making this pitch to you. And the first time you were like, I was like, so, you know, Layla, please apologize in this way. And like, I want to like take it in, you know, and you were like, yeah, Ryan, I'm really sorry for, and I was like, fuck you, not like that. Like, I don't mean like casual on the surface. I mean, you're going to really fucking do this right now. I was very aggressive and like very violent in my handling of the whole thing, and like trying to scan for whether or not you were actually in yourself, like, and present in offering the apology. And there was another false start. You're like, you paused longer and you were like, I really wish I wouldn't have. And I was like, fuck you. You know, I was like, no, you're really going to do it. And then you paused longer, and maybe this is projection and I was off spiritually, but it felt to me like you were actually coming from a place of caring about me as a human being and recognizing that it was like, I was in incredible pain at that time because of the boundary violation, like betrayal. And I tried to take it in. So I like, while you were apologizing, I was kneeling on my bed and like breathing and trying to like take this in. And it was like the one time in my life that I've like switched into kind of like, just like seeing red, is that how I describe it? Like some shit broke down and I like became completely dysregulated. And I like had these double paned glass windows. And I started like bashing them with my fists as hard as I possibly could, and smashed through one and like cut myself like pretty badly, like had to get stitches, like just trying to take in the apology. So it's kind of like confusing to me, like how I would kind of go off the rail all the way in that moment. But that was the effort from my side. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I was like, I'm done.
If you want to know what real patheticness looks like, the next day I called her back and I was like, we should be back together. And she was like, no. This is like how fucked up this was. I was like, after doing this, like after being like, who is this person? And having visions of this should never happen again. I was like, we should be together. And she was like, no, you know, so it's like,
and then you flew to Egypt.
And then, yeah, a good friend of mine was like, I was like, I'm considering going to Egypt. And he was like, what the fuck are you even thinking? Like, you have stitches in 2 places on your arms. You're totally distraught. This person like, you know, like broke a rule that you guys set, like, don't go. And I went, and it was horrible. It was like the worst experience of my life. Like, you were like, maybe I'll pick you up at the airport. And I was like, what the fuck? She was like,
I was so
I'm
done.
seeing my person. Yeah. So it was like, thank God for someone agreeing to buy me a faster plane ticket home after like 1 or 2 days. And yeah, you got to see me at my low of like, you know, sobbing in the bathroom of your aunt's, like, or whatever, maybe, or some relatives.
My aunt's house. Yeah. And that was, I think, like, I'd love for us to maybe just share like a few things that we feel like we learned. Because to me, like, the whole point of sharing the end of the relationship is like, what did we kind of learn from that? And I feel like I learned that like at some point I got out of my integrity and what I really wanted, and that I was done, but I wasn't saying it, and that was horrible. I also think I learned in that moment in that boundary violation that I never, ever, ever wanted to do that again. Like that was horrific, and incredibly painful
Mm.
to face and to deal with. And like I said, like that whole experience and just like the depth and level of pain was it was unbelievable. And I was like, okay, wow, like there's serious block here in me
Mm.
and my ability to be in healthy relationship. And
Mm.
it was a huge catalyst for me to like really deeply do the work. And yeah, I felt like to take full responsibility for myself and that time. And also I was never in any kind of polyamory ever again because
Mm.
it went so poorly that
Mm.
I think I took a
I
deep
recommend it.
level of respect. I took a deep
Mm.
level of respect. I know you're now in a polyamorous marriage, but I took away a deep level of respect for the forces that are being played with in open relationships.
Mm.
And I had a deep humility in my full inability to
Mm.
navigate them with compassion and love back then.
Yeah. Nice. Taking it in. Um, I think one thing I learned that feels really valuable to me is I was living in this world that, like, I think one of the things that was the most painful when I described that experience of crashing through the glass basically was my worldview was something akin to like, if I like bring my truest self, like in the fullest way with like my love, that like, um, I'll always have this like reliable like receptivity on the other side.
Mm.
And I think that's naive. I mean, I think that it takes agency away from another person, right? Like I think that like we are like independent creatures and we can offer things that are real and beautiful to people, and they can, have their fill in a lifetime of those things, or they can have their fill in like a second, of those things. And
They can be profoundly
yeah,
incapable of receiving it.
yeah, yeah, it's fine. Maybe that's one thing I'm still not, I haven't like let in all the way or something like that. Like I don't really, maybe I'm not holding, yeah, I don't know. It feels to me as you say that there's more emotional charge on that idea that you were incapable of receiving it than there is for me. Like maybe it feels under-examined for me is what I mean when I say it. Um, yeah, anyway, from my perspective, the update is that like you need to be prepared to bring love, be true, be present, and also recognize that like it doesn't guarantee that someone's going to meet you. Like it's like, and like be consistent in that, and that's going to work. And I think I had this deeply held belief that like, how could anyone reject something so pure and beautiful and full or something like that, right? And so it's something I'm working on like actively now, is like still being able to open.
Yeah.
Those
Well, I
things.
think that to me is one of the saddest parts of trauma. And like one of the
Mm,
things that I looked at so deeply was
mm,
like to receive love that beautiful and yes, complex, right? Because you had your own stuff going on. It's not
mm.
like you were perfectly integrated and
Yeah,
offering this
totally,
like
totally.
whole, integrated, healed person. But the level and gift of your love, I wasn't unaware of what that was. Like
Mm,
I was,
yeah.
and I was still very unable to receive it all the way.
Mhm,
And
mm,
I reflected on that extensively. And the one thing that I wish is I wish I'd had someone at that time
mm,
tell me. And I think you get to a certain point where you can take full responsibility for your life. And in my early 20s, I wish I had had someone tell me, like, maybe you should look at this, not just that you don't have feelings for Ryan or you don't love Ryan,
mm,
and what is complex PTSD in your own heart? Like, what is
mm,
your own blockage? And
mm,
even if I'd still come to, I don't believe it was our dharmic truth to be together,
mm,
but I would have
mm,
loved the opportunity to take full responsibility for the ways that I was dissociated and
mm,
disconnected in my
mm,
heart. Whereas at the
mm,
time, I feel like I just
mm,
finally was like, this is our
yeah,
relationship. Like, I'm done. And I remember you wrote me a letter, and one of the things that showed me a lot about where I was I opened it and you talked about how we were going to get married and have
mm,
a baby and
mm,
travel the world together and
mm,
like be
mm,
super happy.
mm,
And I literally like put it down on the floor
mm, mm,
and slowly kicked it under
mm,
the dresser.
mm,
And so if you have any doubt about someone not being able to receive the purest gift of love, I think that says so much because I had tears streaming down my face because I was so touched by the beauty and desire of a man wanting to do that with me and being that devoted. And somatically, the only thing I knew how to do was to kick it under the dresser so I didn't have to look at it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, thanks. I appreciate it. It's going to go into another thread, but I feel like I would just give that one a little more room, on the tape.
Do you want to give me a Hallmark card just to wrap this up?
Yeah, that card doesn't come again.
Nice,
it's a once in a lifetime card.
Nice thank you note to polish off this podcast.
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think that like everything at its own pace. And when you talk about not knowing then, that's what we're doing now, right? Like, it's like, this is the coming back together and still being alive and being able to reflect and like honor what happened and own where the growth is. And like it's like, I don't know. There's like, I think there's beauty in like the complexity, messiness, and pain of it all too. And like the slow unraveling,
I'm curious as a final piece, like what were some of your favorite parts of me from back then that you always take with you?
Yeah, I think favorite was like, you did like, I really loved, you had like, I think it was for my birthday, you did like Ryan Day basically. And it was like scheduling events from like morning to night, including like climbing up on like some tower in Thailand that like gives us a higher vantage point and kind of just stacking one thing after the next and being like abundant and being like, let's go all the way. Like, why stop halfway? That one's like been in my head. Let's see what else is here. Yeah, you mean other moments? Like, there's so many of them, really, honestly. Oh, another was I don't know. I'm trying, like, it's a memory that's like taking shape in my head. You would have moments of like one or two, and I was like kind of not doing well, where you just like totally embraced me too. There was once we were on like a scooter riding on like a ride in town, and I feel like I was being really sour, and you were like, "It's okay, you can like bring that, like be upset, like that's fine." And I was like, "Whoa!" Like that felt like another like kind of energy as opposed to like tightening from it. So, yeah, these are a couple.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for coming. And I was really touched because we've hung out and stayed connected over the years that you said you became a therapist because you were so inspired by our relationship.
Totally. Yeah, there's a like handful of experiences for me that were like important in like making that decision to move from like chocolate land to being a therapist. And definitely a lot of the seeds of them were like watching your progress. And like one of the gifts you have that's like super abundant is being able to make like visible what's going on inside of you in really cool ways. So like there was this like fascinating like opportunity to look inside and be with you as you went through different things. And like that is something that I still love, and like in my practice, a lot of the richness of the moments we're describing right now in terms of making contact with people in presence in new ways. And a lot of the courage I saw in you, like, it's like, honestly, like I fall like humble before people in the room, in the therapy room, who also make similar steps of like courage with themselves. It's like really something that I love like on the regular. And I'm like really thankful that it's in my life basically every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for all of the ways that you held me in such a beautiful journey that was messy and complicated and wild and truly like one of the greatest gifts of my life.
Yeah. Thanks for showing me how to have a really fucking amazing time at life, and also for like accepting my love and offering love in return, and like meeting me in these like really like juicy and wonderful spaces. It was great.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you for listening to this Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realest conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful, supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so much for being here.